I didn't want to die, but I didn't necessarily want to live. Every time I would wake up, I would feel like, oh damn, another day, another morning. I don't want to get up. A little disclaimer, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a doctor, or any of this. I'm just a person who's really interested in psychology and therapy, and a person who's going through therapy right now. Hi guys, and welcome to another video. You probably don't even realize how much strength and actually time it took me to be able to make this video. I usually prefer to write a script and have this like a structure in my videos, but today I decided that I just want to share, and I hope that this video can make some of you feel a bit less alone. I'm not sure how this video will be very insightful, but I'm going to try and share my knowledge and my experience with depression. We all know something about depression. We hear that term all the time. At least it was my case. I was very aware of this disorder, and I thought that I experienced that in my past, but it was only until I actually got a major depressive episode, and I'm gonna talk about this now. So clinical depression, or major depressive disorder, is a mental disorder characterized by at least 2 weeks of pervasive low mood, low self-esteem, and loss of interest and pleasure in normally enjoyable activities. Just so you know, when it comes to my experience, I've always thought that I was a very kind of depressive, melancholic, sad person. You know, I actually loved being sad and like being in this kind of a tragic mood. That would give me a lot of inspiration, and that's why I would listen to some sad songs and watch some very sad movies and this melancholy, but it was sort of even inspirational. So I thought that I've also experienced some depressive episodes, and this may be or may not be true. I don't think that you can kind of diagnose something that you've experienced a while ago because you don't really remember every single thing that you felt. Anyway, I'm originally from Ukraine. I've been living in France for 10 years, and I still have family and friends in Ukraine, and unless you live in a bunker, you probably know what happened in 2022, and is still happening actually. And I think in that year of 2022, I've gone through so many feelings and emotions and just things and stress that I've never actually experienced during my whole life. It was a starting point for depression, I think, even though just before February, I was going way better than before, but before this time when I was getting better, I think I've also had like a depressive episode. But you know, the COVID years, it's I think common with a lot of people because it was just very difficult, and I am an actress and I couldn't get any jobs and I couldn't stop blaming. It's another story, you know. By 2022, I started getting some jobs, I started going to castings, and my career was actually kind of starting, and I felt much better. The February happened. I don't think that I can actually say these words on YouTube, which is crazy. I don't even know if this video can be monetized, but I'm gonna try. I was in a state of stress every day. I would wake up, read the news, and I would literally spend days reading the news and talking to all of my friends and family, everybody really, asking how they were all the time, and helping some people also to get out of Ukraine. You know, it was stressful. And I think at the time why I think that it was a starting point, because I couldn't let myself and actually absorb and understand that what's going on is affecting me and that I feel that bad, because a lot of people have been feeling bad at the time and still are feeling bad now. But you know what I mean, like some of my friends who had to leave the country, family members who have to experience the bombing every time, who have actually lived through this whole terrible thing. I was talking to them, and of course I couldn't even think about how this situation is affecting me, because I didn't feel like I had the right to complain. And I think if you are a very sensible person, somebody who's very empathetic, you'll understand what I'm talking about, because I'm just a person who's like so empathetic. And also I was really preoccupied with this. I was thinking, how can I help people? I was also getting more castings, weirdly enough, and I was getting some projects. I was taken to play some parts. I actually did those jobs, and in February, at the time when started, I was filming a little short movie. I was there the whole time acting, trying to do my best. And at the same time, in my life, the world just had crushed. I was in this kind of auto mode for a while until September, when, well, probably you know or you don't know, the mobilization in Russia happened. So literally they said that I'm gonna ask for more people to go and fight. I think, weirdly enough, this triggered even more traumas. And I think the whole year 2022, I felt like all of the traumas, all of the bad things that I've ever experienced, all of the sad things that I've ever gone through, they've just like come back, but they were 20 times more intensive. And in September, even more terrifying news. I was reading again a lot of news, and you know, people talking about nuclear war, and it was just a very stressful environment. And I think at the time I felt really lonely, and also my boyfriend went to work, and I was also working alone from home. I stopped getting that many castings or projects whatsoever, so I was just there alone reading the news and working from home. And it was, yeah, I think at the time that was the starting point when I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. So this is like a little background, but I think, you know, depression happens to people who live sometimes in a wonderful conditions and nothing bad happens to them, and they just feel that way. That's normal, because, you know, it's something that it's chemical, it's something in our brain sometimes. If I'm to describe what I felt, I think that I felt helpless, hopeless, and I felt like I was there alone, even though I wasn't. But I think also because I'm a person who kind of likes to, you know, put on this smiling mask and pretend that things are not that bad for me. I think it's like a coping mechanism that I learned from my mother. Because I was alone for a while, I was home alone all the time. Like, I remember writing this down. It's gonna sound maybe a bit cheesy, but this is the exact way how I felt. I felt like I was alone in the ocean, and I could kind of see other people somewhere far from me, and they were all swimming. I had no energy to keep swimming, and I felt just like I was floating on my back. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything, and I couldn't even ask for help. And I think because my friends were going through some very tough times, I also didn't feel comfortable sharing with them, because I was self-sabotaging, just telling myself like, oh, I live in Paris, I have a wonderful cat, I have a loving boyfriend, my parents are alive, you know, things like that. I have arms, I have legs, but this is something post-Soviet people say, but you know. And I would try to calm myself down, even though it was not helping at all. I mean, just because I have all these things, and because I live a normally accepted in society normal life, you know, nothing is like, I don't live under bombs, I'm safe. And this doesn't mean that I can't go through some rough times. And also, if you are just like me and you live somewhere else and you've like moved, you're an immigrant, or you've been living in another country for a couple of years or several years, you probably would understand what I'm talking about. I felt like my world has changed, but the world around me in real life hasn't. So I would go to my acting class, for example. I loved my acting class. It was like the best time of the week. I would feel sometimes so weird because the people around me, well, they were all aware of what's going on, because it didn't concern them. Their life was sort of almost unpacked, whereas my life was all around this. I just felt really bad. Another prejudice that I want to talk about, I didn't didn't necessarily look bad all the time as we show. Sometimes I would really take some effort and like try to put on some makeup and look a bit better. It's even harder to tell that somebody's going through depression because they look so good. Let's go on to the feelings and how exactly it felt, you know, a day of depression. How did it feel? I would wake up with my alarm clock and I would feel zero energy. No matter how long I've slept, I would actually feel not happy. Every time I would wake up, I would feel like, oh damn, another day, another morning. I don't want to get up. But I think because I'm like a highly efficient, highly productive person, I couldn't stay in bed because I would have felt even worse if I stayed in bed. Also, I had to work and I didn't have any money, so I was really dependent on the job. And I would force myself to get up after like 30 minutes or so, sometimes an hour. I would have a very bad mood from the beginning of the day. Like the mornings were the worst. I would have my coffee, still no energy, very sleepy. I would feel throughout the day that I would love to go and sleep. I would just feel sleepy the whole day till the evening. So I sit in front of my computer, try to work. And also I think the weather outside, you know, is really cold. It played. So I would feel really bad the whole day. And I want to highlight two things that actually show that it was not just bad mood. Every time I would have to do something at home, like wash dishes or I don't know, clean up the toilet or something, I would feel like so much weight on me, like I couldn't do it. I would get so nervous every time, so angry and stressed if I'd have to wash the dishes because I had no energy to do it. But my boyfriend was out working, so he couldn't do it as well, and he was also tired, so I had to do it. But it was just so difficult for me to do anything at the house, to do any of the tasks, work or not work related, anything, to do anything. It was just so complicated and I really didn't want to do it. And the other thing is that normally if I have like a bad day, you know, I would try to cheer myself up and I don't know, go on a walk or buy something or eat something sweet or do something nice, you know, have fun, see some people, or just like go to a museum, watch a movie, whatever. Things that would help me to feel better. But at the time when I had this depressive episode, I couldn't think of anything that would make me feel better. I would go out and don't feel better, but actually feel worse. Even though for me, going out, like even just taking a walk, normally that helps me so much. You know, taking some air, not only it wasn't helping me, it was actually making me feel worse because I would get really anxious outside. I started getting my social anxiety back because I struggled with it a long time ago. During the depressive episode, it's gotten worse. I felt really anxious every time I would go and buy groceries or do anything really that would just cause me so much anxiety that I wouldn't want to do it. Every time I would think, okay, well, let's do something that I usually like. Let's watch a movie. But I didn't feel any pleasure at all of doing the things that I normally really enjoy doing. It also affected my relationship, of course, because I just didn't want to do anything that would normally give me some pleasure. Interestingly enough, by the evening, I would normally feel slightly better. I would try and do something like a physical activity or just like watch something. I would try to dance a little bit at night, at home, or read a book or watch some series. And I would actually start feeling much better by night. And sometimes at like 10 p.m. I would feel like, okay, well, I think I'm much better now. So tomorrow I'll wake up earlier and I'll do all the things that I wanted to do. I'll start living, I'll start doing the things that I like. But tomorrow it would be the same thing. I would wake up with no mood, no energy, low self-esteem. I would feel like shit and I wouldn't want to do anything, and I would just procrastinate and not do anything the whole day, or like do the minimum tasks. And even sometimes I would actually be very productive and do some things like film a video or be good at work or like, I don't know, go to castings. I would actually do them, but I would still feel that emptiness inside. And I think the feeling of emptiness and loneliness have always been there in my life, but sometimes they're being more intense and sometimes less. And yeah, during this episode, it was like the most intense that I've ever felt. I felt like there was just nothing. I felt like there was just this huge hole inside of me. And also I was crying all the time. I think I would cry multiple times a day, every single day. It badly affected the health of my eyes and like my face. I don't know. I still feel a bit more puffy than I used to be because I was just crying so much. I'm normally a pretty emotional person. It was not okay, you know. I would watch something like a video of a puppy, not this kind of a tragic, sad story of a puppy. No, just a puppy. And I would just get so emotional and like start literally sobbing and crying really intensely. And at some point I realized that it doesn't look good. It feels like it's only getting worse and it feels like I can't cope. Shared to my mother a little bit and I shared to my boyfriend, and they were both surprised. They didn't know that I was going through all this because they would see someone who's less smiley. They didn't know that I was that bad. And especially my boyfriend, you know, we live together, but he often works by night, so he would come back home at like 11:30 p.m. He would see me already being a bit more motivated, a bit more inspired, because I would feel much better at night. And he would also see the dishes that were undone, but he wouldn't, you know, understand there was something going on with me. You know, we would laugh, we would do something fun, watch something, and I would be almost like a normal me. But again, he said that I was smiling like 20 times less than usual. So I shared, and there were like, yeah, you probably should see a therapist or like talk to someone. Things you're going through, they're not very good, they're not very healthy. And I agreed, but the problem was that I had some funds that I could spend on that. I tell this to everybody, you know, if you're going through something similar, if you're feeling really bad, or you feel that there's something wrong with your mental state, go see a therapist. I always tell this to everybody, but I also understand that not everybody can do this because it's a luxury nowadays. It can be very expensive. It's not that easy, and I know because I've gone through this. And every time I would feel a bit better, I would try to search for a therapist somewhere in Paris. Very expensive, even though you have this like help from the government, but they're still expensive, and you never know if the therapist is good or not and how many sessions you'll need and so on. It's just hard to find someone who you can trust in a way. And then at some point my friend shared to me that she's going into therapy and she really likes it, so I kind of asked her for a contact and I found this nice therapist. So I started seeing her, so I started going into therapy, and it's been, I think, since December. Or I think my depressive episode was kind of over by January, so it was only a couple of months that I was aware of it, and I think a year in total, maybe more. I mean, I can tell when it started because before I had some lows as well. I don't know if it was informative or not, but I'm going into therapy. I've been feeling much better. I can say that I'm not depressed anymore. My anxiety has also been much lower. Just very interesting for me to see how actually you can feel free of those intrusive thoughts. You can have energy, you can be inspired, you can actually want and wait for something to happen, you know. You can actually want to live and keep on going and keep on doing the things that you do. Because when I was depressed and I didn't want to do anything, I didn't even want to picture my career or picture anything. It also felt like I had this weird understanding of the future. I felt like I had no future because, you know, everything is so bad that we're just gonna die very soon and we don't have a future. And yeah, I didn't see the point of really living. I didn't want to die, but I didn't necessarily want to live. Yeah, I just couldn't find a motivation, and nonetheless, I still had a lot of anxiety. So I wouldn't see the point of life, but I would get anxious, and I would worry about things that had no importance. Some little things, like washing the dishes, that would cause me anxiety, or like going out, or going and casting as well. And it was a very interesting mixed state, but I'm so lucky now that I think because I contacted the therapist quite quickly, I was able to kind of stop this from progressing, because it was so if I'm to sum up the experience with depression, it just felt like you're there alone. Like nobody can get you, or nobody can help you, and no answer seemed satisfying, and nothing seemed satisfying at all. You were there, you couldn't move, and everybody around was moving, and you couldn't tell anybody or ask anybody to help you. When I was going through all that, I felt like I was 80 years old, like my life was in the past tense. Was able to get out of this situation, to not feel like that anymore. And every day when I wake up and I feel like I want to do something, and I feel inspired and motivated and feel present as well, because I have a history with derealization, and now I don't feel like that anymore. And when you are depressed, most of the time I think you feel kind of numb. You either feel really sad, but it's a very different feeling of sadness. It's sort of overwhelming sadness, like tragic sadness, like if somebody has just died. But most of the time during the day, I felt nothing at all. I didn't feel excitement, I didn't feel anger, I didn't feel anything. It was just nothing at all. I forgot how to feel. It affects on the quality of life so much, and like my quality of life and my perception of things, of my life, or what I've achieved, and of what I do and try to do has changed so drastically. And I wish you guys the best if you're struggling with something similar. I just want to say that depression has an end. It will be over someday, and you will be able to live as a normal person, to feel things. I don't want to say that it's gonna be the same, because it's not, but it can be better, I'm just a living example that actually you can live through this. It's gonna be over, and I'm just telling you, life without depression is the best. It's like being born again, and I'm telling you, this is exactly how I feel. Yeah, anyway, if you like this video, I would really appreciate if you put thumbs up. And you can share your story in the comments. I always read all of the comments and try to answer to them. And just if you want to share, if you're going through something difficult, you can share. There, it's a safe space, no matter where you're from or what you're going through. If you want me to make more videos about mental health and the stuff that I know, I'm not an expert, again, I'm not a therapist, and subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you very soon. Bye bye. Also, you can check my Instagram. I post their daily stories and stuff, so pretty interesting if you want to know more about my Parisian life and my mental health.